Oh, hey folks, and welcome back to Broadside Gaming with me, Zug. So we have the last in the list of the updated guides for 2026, and it is the Psyker. Let's jump in and see what you're using. So we're using the Dueling Sword, and the modifiers are as such: damage, finesse, cleave damage, and penetration, lol. And our dump stat is mobility. Perk-wise, we are going with Maniac and Carapace. This is just going to give us a nice sort of bonus over those rages and also helping us to deal with maulers and crushers. Blessings wise, we're going with Riposte, plus 20% critical chance for 6 seconds on successful dodge, and Uncanny Strikes, 24% rending on enemy weak spot hit for 3.5 seconds, stacking 5 times. The Dueling Sword is incredibly accurate, so it is not difficult at all to get those headshots in. Just, heavy strikes to the face. It is very, very generous with its classing of what is actually a weak spot hit. Very good. And then if you need to, you can just slash a bit. It's not great against armor, but if you have to deal with unarmored things, it's not too bad. I mean, it's not great for dealing with hordes, but then this thing isn't for dealing with hordes. This thing is for dealing with scary, scary men in your face. Lots of lovely damage. Anyway, that is the Dueling Sword. Next up, we have our main weapon, which is the Inferno Force Staff. Or the Rifthaven Staff, if you're used to playing the Psyker before they changed all the names to something stupid. So, the modifiers are as such: damage, warp resistance, burn, and cloud radius are all at 80, and quell speed is our dump. Perk-wise, we're going with crit, and then we're going with damage against flak armored enemies. Blessings wise, we're going with penetrating flames, lol. Direct hits apply 4 stacks of 2.5% brittleness for 5 seconds, stacking 16 times. Brittleness is rending that you apply to a target. Rending is applied to you. Brittleness is applied to a target. Next one is Warp Nexus. Gain between 5 and 20% critical chance based on current level of perils. Now, the Rifthaven Staff, it's a classic, and also it is being buffed quite nicely. It is basically a fire hose of pain. Also, dot damage is incredibly powerful still, so even if you can't spray things down completely, the dot you're leaving on them, it will just generally take care of everything. And it likes to jump around and spread to other things because of the talents we're taking. We will look at those in a second. Curios. We have got 2 toughness curios, which are twinned, which is 5% toughness, 4% combat ability generation, and damage resistance to gunners. And then we have a third one, which you can change if you want to. I like having stamina because it basically gives you some more survivability on your ability to dodge and move and basically not be in the way of unpleasant things. But if you don't like having the max stamina, you can change this to health, which will basically give you a nicer cushion. But they're all the same perk wise, with toughness, combat ability generation, and damage resistance to gunners. As you can see, they're all the same. Then let's take a look at the very important change here I've got to make. Poxbreaker. I finally unlocked it about 3 months ago. I haven't done it yet. Anyway, very important that I did that. That is the gear. Let's take a look at the talents. So we'll start up the top here. We are going with Quietude first. Replace 4% toughness for each 10% of perils quelled or generated. Soul Stealer, replenish 7.5% toughness on warp attack kill into perilous combustion. Killing an elite or a specialist enemy applies 3 stacks of Soul Blaze to nearby enemies, causing damage over time. This is incredibly powerful. Metal, critical hits replenish 10% toughness over 4 seconds. Critical hits also generate 5% 5% movement speed for 4 seconds, stacking 3 times. Then we've got perfect timing, 3% damage for 10 seconds on critical attacks, stacking 5 times. Then we're going into toughness boost, and we're taking Brain Rupture. Charge up your psychic powers and release it to deal immense damage to a single enemy, effective against flak and carapace enemies. This is an augmented version of Brain Burst, dealing plus 50% damage, and then we're also taking Kinetic Flare. All attacks against special, elites, and monstrosities have a 100% chance to hit. 100% chance to on hit to Brain Rupture the target. This cannot occur while at critical perils and has a cooldown of 12 seconds. So back in the day, that this used to basically just pop off at anything, but it doesn't. It doesn't go off on just normal crap now. And also Brain Burst, as it is your blitz ability, very, very good. You don't have to be in line of sight all the time. As long as you can see it when you first start, you can go and hide behind a wall and Brain Burst these things to your heart's delight. Quite nice damage, and also it's quite good for dealing with monstrosities if you don't want to get near them. But it does rack up your perils pretty quickly, so just be careful of that. So, next one is toughness damage reduction into Soul Drinker. Killing an enemy with Soul Blaze restores 15% toughness over 5 seconds and grants a 5% critical hit chance for the duration. As you can see, there are lots and lots of increased crit in this build. Empiric Shock. 6% warp damage taken by victims of your 4-staff's primary attack. Max stacks 5, lasts 10 seconds. Basically setting things on fire, more damage, yay. More crit going into Seer's Presence. 10% cooldown reduction on abilities for you and your allies' incoherency. I mean, we could take more crit, but cooldown is quite important. Next up is Psychedelics Aura for 60% cooldown regeneration for 5 seconds. You or your ally incoherency kills an elite or specialist enemy. Empathic Evasion, a critical hit makes you count as dodging against ranged attacks for 1 second. Again, why we're also stacking lots of crit. One with the Warp, gain toughness damage reduction of 10 to 33% based on your current perils. Toughness boost, and then we're taking Venting Shriek. Unleashes a wave of energy that staggers enemies in front of you, quelling 50% perils. Cooldown is 30 seconds, and then we're taking Becalming Eruption. Venting Shriek now decreases peril generation by 1% for each enemy hit, stacking 25 times, lasts 5 seconds. And the main thing we're after is Creeping Flames. Venting Shriek applies 1 to 6 stacks of Soul Blaze to the target hit based on your current perils. This is another way that you're going to be laying down Soul Blaze stacks and doing horrific amounts of damage. Stamina boost into Vulnerable Minds, 20% damage versus Ogryns and Monstrosities. Into Warp Rider, deal up to 20% damage increased on your perils. Into Into Solidarity, increased quell speed by 30%, also while we don't need it on the weapon. Into Toughness damage reduction, and then we have our Keystone, which is Warp Siphon. Killing an elite or a specialist enemy grants you a warp charge for 25 seconds, stacking 4 times. Each stack increases base damage by 4%. Your next combat ability spends all available warp charges to reduce the cooldown of your combat ability by 7.5 per warp charge, which means we have access to Venting Shriek just damn near 80% of the time. Essence Harvest, replenish 30% toughness over 5 seconds on gaining warp charges. Gaining a new warp charge during this time resets the timer. Warp Battery can now store up to 6 warp charges. And last but not least, in Fire Reborn, killing an enemy with Soul Blaze has a 10% chance to grant you a warp charge, which is basically everything. So there is a hell of a lot of synergy in this build. And is a very simple Psyker build to use as well. Basically, you will be setting fire to absolutely everything. You will be dumping your perils with Venting Shriek and laying down more dots. And as you can see, the cooldown on it is just ridiculously quick. Sorry, Jesus Christ, I can't speak this evening. But as we keep killing, you'll see Venting Shriek just has a huge reduction in how long it takes to use it again. And if we need to, if we're being pressed by heavier armor that we can't deal with just the staff, you can pull out your dueling sword and generally 1 or 2 tap whatever's in front of you. And most of the time, unless it's armor or Ogryns, you can stick with your staff. But if you need to kill something quickly, dueling sword to the face. And that is generally not going to take you very long. Also, Venting Shriek does stagger Ogryns a little tiny bit, but not really enough to save you though. So don't rely on it in that sort of situation because they will just overhead you. But there you go. That is the updated Psyker build. I do hope you enjoy it. And if you do, please do like and subscribe. It really does help at the channel. And I shall see you all for the next video. So until then, take it easy and I shall see you later.